There are some amazing items and unlocks you want to get as early as possible in Diablo 4, including the ability to create your own legendary items and increase your potion capacity. It's of course also important to upgrade your potions whenever you get the chance, which you do at the alchemist marked by this icon on your map. You unlock the first upgrade at level 10, and then pretty much every 10 levels after you can upgrade it again to increase the healing potency. The materials you need for the first couple of upgrades are very easy to come by. In fact, you probably already have them on hand, but some of the later ones require materials that can only be found on world tier 3 or above. And by the way, did you know that next to upgrading your healing potions, an alchemist can also use the various plants and materials you've collected to brew elixirs? There is a wide variety of these, and their buffs all last for 30 minutes. But the best part is that each elixir also includes a 5% XP boost of the same duration. So make sure you always have one active to make leveling go a little bit quicker, and the best one for that purpose is the weak third eye elixir. This one only requires 8 gallovine and 5 howler moss to make, which are both very common materials. Gallovine can literally be found anywhere, and howler moss grows in the Skullsglen region, which is to the north of where you start, so easy to go there early on. And if you want some extra XP and loot, you want to keep an eye on the map for these Legion events that you will see thanks to these markers on the map. They will have a timer, so always go there when you see them pop up, or they will disappear again. These events will attract a lot of players, and like I said, give you a ton of XP and some great loot as well, although that kind of depends on how well you did as a group during the first phase of the event. When the timer hits 0, the event starts, and for the first phase you'll need to kill waves of enemies to fill up a meter. Their spawn locations will be pinged out on the map, so keep an eye on that. After the meter fills, a mini boss will spawn that you need to kill. There will be some protective structures giving him a shield, so break those first and then kill the boss. You rinse and repeat the same cycle 2 more times, and after that the Overlord boss will spawn and needs to be taken down for you to claim your rewards. Now you can of course run out of time, which means that you'll stop the hunt for the additional mini bosses and go straight to the Overlord. While that might sound like it's a good thing, the more mini bosses you defeat before the timer runs out, the more loot chests will appear after defeating the final boss. So if you manage to ace the encounter, you can get 3 big loot chests at the end, which can include some legendary items if you are lucky. So totally smart to slot some nice AoE ad clearing ability so you can cut through the fodder quickly and get to those mini bosses. Totally do these events when you see them, especially during the end game, as some of them will also get you 3 grim favors for the Tree of Whispers that can give you some great end game loot. And if you want to do as many of these as possible, it's also smart to start clearing out strongholds, as sometimes these events will spawn in stronghold locations. Problem is that if you don't have the stronghold completed, you cannot participate in the Legion event, as you can see here with the one near Core Dragon. Clearing strongholds also gives another huge benefit, because each one gives you 100 region renown. In case you didn't know, each of the 5 main regions of the map, so that's the Fractured Peaks, Skullsglen, Dry Steppes, Kyrgyzstan and Hawazar, have their own XP and reward track. You can check it by pressing triangle, Y on Xbox or W on PC with the map open. These renowned reward tracks allow you to unlock multiple very useful things for your character, like skill points, but it is also the only way to upgrade your healing potion capacity in the game. While you start out with a maximum of 4, you can unlock an extra slot by getting your region renown to level 2, and since there are 5 main regions, you can upgrade the total to 9 if you get all of them. The best part is, this unlock is account wide, as you can see by the icon in the reward track, meaning that if you start a new character, you'll immediately have a higher potion capacity. By the way, if you enjoyed the video so far, be sure to leave a like and subscribe as well to not miss our upcoming Diablo 4 content. And like I said, the quickest way to increase your region level is by completing strongholds in that area, as these each reward 100 renown upon completion. Each region has 3 of them, so completing all strongholds already puts you at 300 renown. If you need help locating these strongholds, I'll put a link to an interactive map in the video description to help you quickly find them all. But we'll need 500 in each region to unlock all the potion capacity upgrades, so there's still some work to be done after that. You'll probably have over 300 already, as discovering areas and activating waypoints also grants you renown, and then you have to pick between doing side quests, dungeons, and finding altars of Lilith to get you to 500. I think doing the latter is probably the fastest. Sure, they only give you 10 renown each, but you only have to get to the statue and touch it, as opposed to doing an entire side quest. Plus, you'll want to activate all of these eventually, as each unlocks a permanent stat boost for all characters. You can also find these on that interactive map. Again, it's really helpful and you can find the link in the video description. And while activating the Altars of Lilith is the quickest way of farming renown, I do still recommend doing some specific dungeons because these will reward you with some amazing legendary perks for your Codex of Power. Think of the Codex as a library of legendary perks that you can then apply to items and an NPC called the Occultist to create your own legendaries. I'll talk about how that works in a bit, but if you want to go ahead and already grab yourself a great legendary aspect, I recommend going to the Lost Archives, which is over here in the starting region Fractured Peaks. The reward for this one is the amazing aspect of the Protector, which when applied to an item grants you a barrier after hitting an elite enemy. The barrier lasts for 10 seconds or until you take a specified amount of damage, but it's really useful to immediately trigger some extra defenses when you hit a more dangerous enemy. It's not infinite though, there is a 30-second cooldown, but since the cooldown starts as soon as the barrier triggers, it's actually not that bad. The other nice thing about this aspect of the Protector is that it works on all classes. Some of the aspects are namely class specific, like the aspect of Conflagration for the Sorcerer that's great for fire-based builds as it increases your burning damage while casting Incinerate, so a great way to buff up one of your core abilities. This one is a reward for your first completion of the Light's Watch dungeon over here on the map. But there are a lot more aspects that work on all classes too, like the eluding aspect that you can find in the Caldera Gate, also in the Fractured Peaks over here. This one might not sound super exciting, but it can be a real lifesaver in tough situations. If you get crowd controlled with this aspect on an item and you get injured, so fall below 35% of your health, you become unstoppable for 4 seconds. Being unstoppable breaks all current crowd control effects, and you also cannot be crowd controlled during that 4-second window. So it might be a bit situational, but this aspect protects you from one of the worst things in the game, which is being stuck and unable to move at low health. There are, by the way, quite a lot of effects that count as crowd controlled, such as being feared or frozen, so the eluding aspect might trigger more often than you'd think. But if you'd rather buff your offensive power, there are some great aspects too, in particular 2 that work really well together. You can find one of them, the Rapid aspect, in the Buried Halls dungeon in the Dry Steppes over here on the map. This one is very straightforward as it increases the attack speed of your basic skills by 15%. Since these are your bread and butter, it's nice to be able to increase their attack speed, and it also helps you generate your class resource more quickly so you can use your stronger core skills more often. But this aspect really shines when you pair it with the aspect of the Expectant, which is a reward from the Underroot dungeon in Skoskelen, which is over here. There is a stronghold in this area too that you need to clear first, but like I mentioned earlier, doing those is pretty much always a good idea. And then after you also clear the dungeon, you have an aspect that allows you to charge your core skills with basic attacks. For every basic skill you use, you increase the damage of your next core skill by 5% up to a maximum of 30%. Meaning that if you get into a rhythm of hitting 6 basic attacks and then using your core skill, they always deal 30% more damage. And obviously the synergy between the aspect of the Expectant and the Rapid aspect is great, as faster basic attacks means you'll charge up this buff even quicker. Now these suggestions work for pretty much any character or build, but if you are looking for some class specific buffs, remember that you can sort aspects in the codex by your class only, and it will also show you which aspects you haven't unlocked yet and in what dungeon they can be found. You can also sort aspects by their categories, which is important because each category can only be applied to specific types of items. So for instance, defensive aspects like the aspect of the Protector can only be imprinted on shields, helmets, chest pieces, pants or amulets. Likewise, offensive aspects like the Rapid one can only be applied to amulets, weapons, gauntlets and rings. If you're ever unsure, just check the list of allowed item types in the codex. And speaking of which, let's talk about how to actually use these aspects. You'll immediately gain access to the Occultist after adding your first aspect to the codex, and they're marked by this icon on the map. But in order to start making your own legendaries, you'll also need an item of rare quality or higher. You select an item you want to inscribe, and then you select the aspect you want to inscribe from your Codex of Power. These are not consumed when you use them, so other than the material cost, you're not losing anything. Because the process also requires some gold and crafting materials, specifically the veiled crystals you get from dismantling rare gear. At higher levels, you also need some legendary crafting materials, which you can salvage from dismantling legendary gear, but they also also drop from the reward caches you get from the Tree of Whispers. You can check a preview of the item you're about to make before spending your resources, and you'll see that all the stat buffs remain the same, but the item now has a legendary aspect added to it. So by using this system, you can create your own legendary items and handpick the aspect you want on them from your Codex of Power. This means you're not completely limited by what item drops you get, as you can just create items with specific legendary aspects that enhance your playstyle whenever you want. There is actually a bit more to this system, and you can easily make some mistakes as well. Check out our previous video on how to avoid these and other mistakes you don't want to make by clicking on the screen, and subscribe to not miss our upcoming tips and tricks for Diablo 4. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye!